The girl who knocked out Lincoln High's golden boy had been invisible for exactly 372 days. She'd been counting. Savannah Wright discovered that grief was the ultimate invisibility cloak. After Kyle's flag-draped coffin arrived from Kandahar, she'd simply faded. Not all at once, but slowly, like a photograph left too long in sunlight. First, the teachers stopped calling on her. Then, classmates stopped seeing her in hallways. By senior year, she could walk through Lincoln High's glass atrium at peak traffic and create not a single ripple in the current of teenage life. She preferred it that way, on this particular October morning. Savannah sat in her usual spot in the cafeteria's far corner, back against the wall, watching the careful choreography of high school hierarchy play out at the center tables. The athletes held court near the floor-to-ceiling windows, autumn light casting them in golden relief, like some Renaissance painting of American youth. At the apex sat Hunter Caldwell, 18 years old and heir to a political dynasty. His laugh carrying across the room with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted his place in the world. If you're feeling that rush of what's going to happen next, hit that like button. It really helps more people discover these stories. And if you want to share where you're watching from, drop it in the comments below. For those who want to support more stories like this one, there's a thanks button right under this video. Every contribution, no matter how small, helps me bring you more inspiring tales of courage and standing up for what's right. Thank you for being here. Now, let's see what happens when push comes to shove. Savannah knew that laugh was a lie. She'd heard the real Hunter Caldwell 3 weeks ago, sobbing in the second-floor bathroom while his father's voice crackled through his phone. "I don't care what you saw. You saw nothing. We're a family, and families protect each other. The campaign—" She hadn't meant to listen. She'd been washing her hands when he'd burst in, not even checking if anyone was there. Why would he? People like Savannah didn't register on his radar. She'd stood frozen as Lincoln High's golden boy had punched the paper towel dispenser hard enough to dent it, his knuckles coming away bloody. "Please, Dad," he'd whispered. "She's Mom's best friend. How can you—" "Enough! Morrison knows what to do if you can't keep your mouth shut. Remember what's at stake." Savannah had slipped out while Hunter was still bent over the sink, watching his blood swirl down the drain. She'd seen the Columbus Dispatch headlines about Senator Caldwell's alleged inappropriate relationship with his campaign manager. But hearing Hunter's raw pain had made it real in a way newsprint couldn't. That was her first mistake, feeling sympathy for Hunter Caldwell. Her second mistake was letting him catch her looking. It happened the next day. Their eyes met across the cafeteria, and she saw the exact moment he recognized her from the bathroom. His face went through a series of micro-expressions: confusion, recognition, then something darker, fear, maybe, or rage. People like Hunter Caldwell didn't like witnesses to their humanity. The harassment started small, almost artistic in its subtlety, a shoulder check in the hallway that sent her books scattering. Her usual cafeteria seat mysteriously soaked with spilled soda. Her locker combinations changed without warning. Each incident was perfectly deniable, witnessed by no one who mattered. "You should tell someone," her mother said one evening, noticing Savannah rewashing a shirt stained with accidentally spilled chocolate milk. Ellen Wright worked double shifts at Grant Medical Center, her scrubs bearing the exhaustion of someone trying to outrun debt and grief in equal measure. "Tell them what?" Savannah folded the shirt carefully. "That Senator Caldwell's son bumped into me. They'd laugh me out of the office." Her mother's hands stilled over the bills she was sorting. since Kyle's death. They'd become experts at not saying what they were thinking. The life insurance had covered the funeral. Barely. The grief counseling had stopped when the insurance ran out. All that remained was the folded flag on the mantel and the empty chair at dinner. "Kyle would want you to stand up for yourself," Ellen said quietly. "Kyle's dead." "Mom!" The words hung between them like shrapnel. Ellen flinched, and Savannah immediately wanted to take them back. But they were true. Kyle was dead. And all his lessons about honor and courage had died with him in a street in Kandahar that Savannah couldn't even pronounce. Except that wasn't entirely true. 3 nights a week. Savannah drove to a strip mall gym on the east side of Columbus, where the windows were covered with fight posters and the air smelled of sweat and determination. Gracie Defense Academy wasn't much to look at, but Kyle's unit brothers trained there, and they'd adopted his little sister without question. Grief is energy, Coach Rivera had told her that first night, when she'd shown up with Kyle's dog tags around her neck and rage burning in her chest. You can let it eat you alive, or you can let it fuel you. On the mat. We choose fuel. 6 months later. She'd earned her blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She could execute an armbar in her sleep, flow from guard to mount like water finding its level. The bruises had faded, but the muscle memory remained. More importantly, she'd learned to breathe through pain, to find calm in chaos, to wait for the perfect moment to strike. Hunter Caldwell didn't know any of this. To him, she was just another invisible girl, a nobody who'd witnessed his moment of weakness. His campaign of harassment was less about her and more about reasserting his control over a world that was spiraling beyond his grasp. Each shove, each accident, each cruel whisper was really aimed at the father who'd betrayed his family, at the mother who pretended not to know, at the voters who whispered behind their hands. Savannah understood this with the clarity of someone who'd spent a year studying grief from the inside. It didn't make her hate Hunter less, but it made her pity him, which was somehow worse. The escalation came on a Tuesday that felt like any other Tuesday. Savannah was walking past the athletic tables, taking the long route to avoid Hunter's usual spot, when she heard her brother's name. Wright's brother, you know, the one who got blown up playing hero in Afghanistan. She froze. The voice belonged to Chase Morrison, the principal's son and Hunter's right hand. Heard he died crying for his mommy," another voice added. "My dad says those army guys are all—" "Shut up." The command came from Hunter, sharp enough to cut glass. The table fell silent. Savannah stood motionless, her pulse pounding in her ears. "Her brother was a Marine," Hunter said quietly, "and he died serving his country. Show some fucking respect." The defense was so unexpected that Savannah turned to look at him. Their eyes met across 15 feet of cafeteria tile, and she saw something flicker in his expression. Not kindness, exactly, but recognition. One broken person seeing another. She nodded once, a tiny acknowledgement, before continuing to her table. It was her third mistake, because Hunter Caldwell didn't want understanding from someone like her. He wanted fear. He wanted to be the predator, not the prey. And her small gesture of gratitude had somehow flipped a switch in his mind, transforming harassment into something deeper and uglier. The next day, he was waiting by her locker with 3 of his teammates. "Hey, Ghost Girl," he said, using the nickname she'd heard whispered in hallways. "Heard you've been telling people about my family, spreading rumors." "I haven't told anyone anything." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. No. Hunter stepped closer, his teammates forming a casual semicircle that blocked her from the main hallway. Then how does Alexis Park know about my dad's campaign troubles? Her blog post yesterday was very specific. Savannah had seen the post. Everyone had. Senator Caldwell's family values, a closer look, had garnered thousands of views in hours, but she hadn't been the source. I don't talk to Alexis Park. I don't talk to anyone. Exactly. Hunter's smile was all teeth. Nobody notices you. Nobody cares what happens to you. You could disappear tomorrow, and the only person who'd notice is your pathetic mother. The rage that flooded through her was familiar now. An old friend she'd met on Coach Rivera's mats. She breathed through it, found her center, waited. Nothing to say. Hunter reached out and flicked her brother's dog tags where they hung outside her shirt. Maybe you're more like him than I thought. Another dead hero wannabe. Her fist clenched, but she held steady. In BJJ, the first rule was simple. Never attack from emotion. Wait for your opponent to make a mistake. Walk away, she said quietly. Hunter laughed. Or what? You'll tell Principal Morrison. He golfs with my dad every weekend. You'll post about it online. Nobody follows invisible girls. Face it. Ghost, you're nothing. You've always been nothing. The only interesting thing about you is your dead brother, and even he... Hunter. Marcus Thompson's voice cut through the tension. The quarterback stood just outside their circle, his expression unreadable. Practice starts in 5. Coach wants everyone in the weight room. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Hunter stepped back, his message delivered. This isn't over, he said quietly, just for her. Savannah watched them leave, her heart still racing. Marcus lingered for a beat, something like apology in his expression, before following his teammates. That night at the gym, she hit the heavy bag until her knuckles bled through the wraps. Coach Rivera watched from the corner, arms crossed. Want to talk about it? No. Want to spar? Yes. They rolled for an hour, and Rivera didn't take it easy on her. By the end, her GI was soaked with sweat, and the rage had burned down to embers. They sat on the mat, sharing a water bottle. You know, Rivera said carefully, your brother used to come here when he was on leave, said the same thing about some kids who were bullying you in middle school. Savannah looked up sharply. He did, asked me to teach him some moves, said his little sister was too proud to ask for help, but he wanted to be ready if she needed him. The tears came without warning, hot and sudden. Rivera pretended not to notice, continuing in the same conversational tone. He'd be proud of how strong you've gotten, but strength isn't just about what you can do on the mat. It's about knowing when to use it. And when is that? Rivera stood, extending a hand to help her up. When someone crosses a line that can't be uncrossed, when walking away isn't an option anymore, you'll know it when it happens. She thought about those words over the next week as Hunter's campaign intensified. He'd moved beyond casual cruelty to calculated destruction. Her homework disappeared from her backpack. Her car tires were deflated twice. Someone spray-painted "Ghost Bitch" on her locker, though it was cleaned up before first period. Through it all, Savannah endured. She thought of Kyle, of his last letter home. The hardest battles aren't the ones with bullets, salve. They're the ones where you have to decide what kind of person you want to be when nobody's watching. She wanted to be someone he'd be proud of, someone who didn't sink to Hunter Caldwell's level, someone who found strength in restraint. But everyone has a breaking point. Hers came on a Thursday afternoon, 2 weeks before the Senate election. The cafeteria was packed, the noise level at its usual controlled chaos. Savannah was carrying her tray to her corner table when Hunter appeared in her path. "Oops," he said, his shoulder catching her tray. Food went everywhere, soup splattering across her shirt, salad hitting the floor, milk carton exploding on impact. The cafeteria quieted, that particular hush that falls when everyone senses blood in the water. Savannah stood there, dripping, as laughter rippled through the room. "God, you're pathetic," Hunter said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Look at you. No wonder your brother couldn't wait to get away from you. Probably volunteered for that last patrol just to—" The rest of his sentence was lost as Savannah moved. It wasn't a conscious decision. 6 months of muscle memory took over. Her right leg swept up in a perfect arc. The roundhouse kick Coach Rivera had drilled into her until it was as natural as breathing. Her shin connected with the side of Hunter's head with a sound like a baseball bat hitting a watermelon. Hunter Caldwell, 6 foot 2 inches of athletic privilege, went airborne. He hit the wall 8 feet away and slid down it, leaving a smear of blood from his nose. The cafeteria erupted in screams, phones appearing like magic to capture the aftermath. Savannah stood in the center of the chaos, soup still dripping from her hair, and felt nothing. No rage, no satisfaction, no fear, just a strange emptiness, like she'd expelled something poisonous and didn't know what to fill the space with. "Holy shit," someone whispered. Ghost Girl just murdered Hunter Caldwell. But Hunter wasn't dead. He was struggling to sit up, blood streaming from his nose, eyes unfocused. His friends rushed to help him, shooting terrified glances at Savannah like she might attack them next. She didn't move, didn't run, just stood there as Principal Morrison burst through the crowd, his face cycling through confusion, horror, and rage. "What happened here?" he demanded. "She attacked me." Hunter slurred through the blood, for no reason. "I was just walking by and she—" "He's lying." The voice came from behind Savannah. Marcus Thompson stepped forward, his phone held high. "I recorded the whole thing," he said, meeting Morrison's glare steadily. "The past 3 weeks, actually. Every accident, every joke. Including what he just said about her brother." The cafeteria held its breath. Morrison's face went pale as he realized the implications. Senator Caldwell's son, caught on video, harassing a Gold Star family member, 2 weeks before an election. "Everyone back to class," Morrison barked. "Now, except you two." He pointed at Savannah and Hunter. "My office, Marcus. You two. And bring that phone." As they filed out, Savannah caught sight of her reflection in the cafeteria windows, soup in her hair, milk on her shirt, surrounded by the debris of Hunter's cruelty. But she was standing, still standing, and for the first time in 372 days, she wasn't invisible. Hunter was helped to the nurse's office first, his friends supporting him on either side. As they passed, he turned to look at her, and she saw something she'd never seen in his eyes before. Fear. Not of her, exactly, but of what she represented. The moment when the powerless suddenly showed power. When the invisible became undeniable. When carefully constructed hierarchies crumbled with a single, perfect kick. Principal Morrison's office door loomed ahead. Behind it waited consequences Savannah couldn't predict. Suspension, certainly. Expulsion, possibly. Legal action if Senator Caldwell decided to make an example of her. But as she walked toward that door, she felt Kyle's dog tags warm against her chest and heard Rivera's words echo in her mind. "You'll know it when it happens." She'd known, and she'd chosen, whatever came next. She'd face it as herself, not the ghost she'd tried to become, but as Savannah Wright, sister of a fallen Marine, daughter of a single mother, and survivor of more than Hunter Caldwell could ever imagine. The office door closed behind them with a sound like fate sealing itself shut. What happened next would change everything. Principal Morrison's office smelled like leather and disappointment. The walls were lined with photos of successful alumni, their frozen smiles a testament to Lincoln High's ability to produce winners. Savannah wondered if Hunter's photo would ever join them now. "Sit," Morrison commanded, pointing to chairs arranged in a semicircle facing his desk. Hunter slumped in his seat, an ice pack pressed to his rapidly swelling face. Marcus stood by the window, phone still in hand. Savannah sat perfectly straight, soup drying in her hair. "Before we begin," Morrison said, settling behind his desk, "I need everyone to understand the gravity of this situation. Violence is never— I have 3 weeks of footage." Marcus interrupted. "Want to discuss the gravity of that?" Morrison's jaw tightened. "Mr. Thompson, you'll speak when—" "No." Marcus stepped forward. "I've watched this happen for 3 weeks, said nothing, did nothing. That ends now." He looked at Hunter. "Show him the video, or I post it online in the next 30 seconds. "Marcus!" Hunter's voice was muffled by the ice pack. "What are you doing?" "The right thing." Finally, Marcus's thumb hovered over his screen. 25 seconds. Morrison's face had gone the color of old paper. He knew, as they all did, what a viral video could do 2 weeks before an election. "Let's not be hasty. I'm sure we can resolve this internally, like you resolved Chase spreading rumors about military families." Savannah spoke for the first time. Or when Dylan Martinez was bullied until he transferred, or when Emma Chen reported assault, and suddenly her family decided to move. "How do you—" Morrison caught himself. "Miss Wright, you assaulted a student. That's grounds for immediate expulsion." "Self-defense," Marcus said. "Clear as day on video." Hunter initiated physical contact, made threats about her deceased brother, created a hostile environment for weeks. He turned his phone toward Morrison. "Want to see today's incident? Or should we start with last Tuesday when he cornered her by the lockers?" The room fell silent except for the tick of Morrison's antique clock. Savannah watched the principal's face cycle through calculations, his weekly golf games with Senator Caldwell, the donation that had funded the new athletic center, the careful balance of power that kept Lincoln High running on reputation and money. "I need to call my father," Hunter said suddenly. "No calls until we resolve this." Morrison replied, but his voice lacked conviction. "You don't get it." Hunter lowered the ice pack, revealing a face that was already purpling. "He'll destroy her. Her mom works at Grant Medical. Write 1, call to the hospital board. 1 lawsuit for assault. He'll bury you both in legal fees until—" "Your dad's not destroying anyone." A new voice from the doorway. Alexis Park stood there, tablet in hand, press badge swinging from her neck. Behind her, Coach Rivera filled the frame like a guardian. "How did you—" Morrison started. "I called them," Marcus said, "right before we came in here. Alexis, you getting all this?" She held up her tablet, recording light steady. Every word. "Principal Morrison, care to comment on Lincoln High's history of protecting students from prominent families?" Morrison's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Rivera stepped into the room, his presence immediately changing the dynamic. "I'm here as Savannah's advocate," he said, "also as someone who trained with her brother, Marine Staff Sergeant Kyle Wright, killed in action serving his country." He looked directly at Hunter. "The brother you thought it was appropriate to mock." Hunter wouldn't meet his eyes. "Here's what's going to happen," Rivera continued. "We're going to watch Marcus's videos, all of them. Then we're going to discuss consequences that don't involve punishing a grieving girl for defending herself against sustained harassment." "You can't just—" Morrison began. "Actually, I can." Alexis pulled up something on her tablet. "In the past hour, the cafeteria video has been viewed 800,000 times. Senator's son terrorizes Gold Star sister is trending number 3 nationally. The Columbus Dispatch wants a statement. CNN just called." She smiled sweetly. "Still want to handle this internally?" Savannah felt the world spinning away from her. This wasn't what she'd wanted. She'd just wanted to be left alone, to grieve in peace, to get through senior year without drowning. Now she was at the center of a hurricane she'd created with one moment of unleashed fury. "I need air," she said suddenly. "Savannah," Rivera started. "Please, just 5 minutes." She fled the office, pushing past concerned faces in the hallway. The bathroom was mercifully empty. She locked herself in a stall and finally let the tears come. For Kyle, for her mother, for the girl she'd been before grief had made her a ghost. Her phone buzzed. Mom calling. She'd seen the video. Of course she had. "Savannah, baby, are you okay?" "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I know we can't afford lawyers, and if I get expelled—" "Stop!" Her mother's voice was fierce. "You stop right there. I just watched my daughter stand up to a bully twice her size. You know what Kyle would say?" Savannah pressed her forehead against the cool metal of the stall door. "What?" "He'd say, 'Semper Fi, little sister.' And then he'd ask why you waited so long." The tears came harder. "I miss him so much." "I know, baby, I know. But you're not alone. Check your messages." Savannah opened her texts to find dozens of notifications. Numbers she didn't recognize. She clicked one at random. "Hey, this is Emma Chen. I know we've never talked, but I wanted to say thank you. What you did today. Hunter's crew terrorized me sophomore year until my parents pulled me out. Seeing him finally face consequences means everything. You're not alone." Another Dylan Martinez here. "I'm at Columbus Arts Academy now. The video of you taking down Hunter is the best thing I've seen all year. If you need witness statements about his past behavior, I've got receipts." And another, "I'm Jordan Walsh's mom. Jordan was too scared to eat lunch for months because of Hunter's gang. Today she saw your video and smiled for the first time in weeks. Thank you for showing her that bullies don't always win." Message after message from the invisible students of Lincoln High. The ones who ate lunch in the library, who took the long way to class, who learned to be ghosts to survive. All of them seeing themselves in her moment of rebellion. The bathroom door opened. "Savannah?" Alexis Park's voice. "You okay in there?" "Yeah, just processing." "Take your time, but you should know. Things are happening fast. Marcus posted the full video compilation. 3 weeks of harassment in 10 minutes. It's already at 2 million views." Savannah emerged from the stall. Alexis was leaning against the sinks, her usual blogger intensity softened by something like respect. "I'm sorry," Alexis said. "I should have written about this weeks ago. I saw what was happening." But she shrugged. Senator's son. You know, I know. Not anymore. Alexis showed her the tablet screen. Look at the comments. #invisible. No more is trending. Students from schools all over Ohio are sharing their stories. You just gave a voice to every kid who's been told they don't matter. They walked back to Morrison's office together. The hallway was lined with students, silent watchers who nodded as she passed. Not cheering, this wasn't a movie, but acknowledging, seeing her. Inside. The dynamic had shifted. Morrison looked defeated. Hunter was on his phone, his father's voice audible even from across the room. Marcus stood with Rivera, showing him something on his phone. 2 more people had joined them, a woman in a suit who looked like a lawyer, and a man with a veteran's pin on his lapel. Ah, Savannah. The woman extended her hand. Patricia Hollis, Veterans Legal Aid, Coach Rivera called us. We're prepared to represent you pro bono if needed. The senator is threatening to sue, Morrison said weakly. Let him, Patricia replied. Assault charges against a Gold Star family after video evidence of sustained harassment 2 weeks before an election. She smiled sharply. I almost hope he tries. Hunter ended his call, his face unreadable beneath the bruising. He wants me to come home. You're suspended. Effective immediately, Morrison said. 3-week investigation pending. What about Savannah? Marcus asked. Morrison hesitated. Patricia cleared her throat meaningfully. 3-day suspension for fighting, he said finally. Time served starting today. She can return Monday. That's bullshit, Hunter started. No, Savannah interrupted. Everyone turned to her. That's fair. I did hit him. Violence shouldn't be the answer. Even when... She looked directly at Hunter. Even when someone tries to weaponize your grief against you. Hunter flinched. For a moment. The mask slipped, and she saw him as he'd been in that bathroom. Lost. Angry. Drowning in family expectations. I'm sorry, he said quietly. About your brother, that was... I went too far. The apology hung in the air, unexpected and somehow painful in its sincerity. Savannah didn't know what to do with it. Apologies don't erase consequences, Rivera said. But they're a start. Patricia's phone buzzed. She checked it and smiled. Senator Caldwell just released a statement. Deeply troubled by the events, taking time to focus on family, withdrawing from tomorrow night's debate. She looked at Hunter. Seems Daddy's more worried about damage control than lawsuits. Hunter stood abruptly. I need to go. Hunter, Savannah said. He paused at the door. That day in the bathroom, when you were on the phone with your dad. I get it, the anger, the feeling like you're drowning and nobody sees it. But taking it out on others, she touched Kyle's dog tags. My brother used to say pain shared wrong just makes more pain. Something shifted in Hunter's expression. Your brother sounds like he was smart. He was. Hunter left without another word. The room reorganized itself around his absence. Papers were signed. Statements were given. Plans were made for Savannah's return on Monday. There will be media attention, Patricia warned. Reporters love a David and Goliath story, especially with political angles. You don't have to talk to anyone. Good, Savannah said. I just want things to go back to normal. But normal was already gone, outside Morrison's office. The hallway was still packed with students. As Savannah emerged, something unprecedented happened. They applauded, not the performative celebration of a fight video, but something deeper, recognition, solidarity, the invisible students of Lincoln High making themselves seen. Ghost Girl, someone called out. You're my hero, not Ghost Girl, another voice corrected. Savannah Wright, use her real name. Savannah, 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 the chant built, echoing off the walls. Savannah stood frozen, overwhelmed. These were students she'd passed 1,000 times without acknowledgement. Now they were chanting her name like she'd done something heroic, instead of just snapping under pressure. Come on, Rivera said gently. Let's get you home. They pushed through the crowd, Alexis and Marcus flanking them like bodyguards. In the parking lot, news vans were already assembling. Rivera steered her toward his truck, shielding her from the cameras. This is insane, Savannah said as they pulled away from school. This is overdue, Rivera corrected. That place has been a pressure cooker for years. You just lit the match. Her mother was waiting on the porch when they arrived, still in her scrubs. She pulled Savannah into a fierce hug that smelled like hospital disinfectant and home. Inside, Ellen Wright ordered. Both of you, I'm making coffee, and we're going to figure out what comes next. What came next was a whirlwind. Patricia Hollis set up camp at their kitchen table, fielding calls from reporters and drafting statements. Alexis posted a long-form piece about Lincoln High's culture of protected privilege that got picked up by national outlets. Marcus's video compilation was dissected on cable news, with talking heads debating everything from school safety to political influence in education. Senator Caldwell withdrew from the race entirely by Friday, citing family priorities. Hunter's Instagram went dark. Rumors swirled about rehab, therapy, military school. Savannah hoped, wherever he was getting help instead of just punishment. She spent her suspension at the gym, working through complex feelings with Rivera's guidance. The other fighters treated her like she'd always belonged, sharing their own stories of standing up to bullies, finding strength through discipline. You know you're going to have to go back Monday, Rivera said during a water break. Face all of it. I know. It won't be easy. Being visible after being invisible, it changes things. Savannah thought about the messages still pouring into her phone. Students from Lincoln High and beyond, sharing their stories, finding courage in hers. She thought about Kyle, about the last video message he'd sent, "Take care of yourself, Sav. And remember, sometimes the hardest battles are the ones nobody sees, but that doesn't make them less important." Monday came too soon, and not soon enough. Savannah's mother drove her to school, squeezing her hand at every red light. You don't have to be anyone's hero, Ellen said as they pulled into the parking lot. Just be yourself. That's the problem, Mom. I don't know who that is anymore. Sure you do. You're Savannah Wright, sister, daughter, survivor. Everything else is just noise. The parking lot was packed with students and media. Principal Morrison had hired security to keep reporters off campus, but they lined the sidewalks with cameras and questions. Savannah kept her head down, pushed through. Inside, the hallways felt different. The light seemed brighter, the air less oppressive. Students she'd never spoken to nodded as she passed. Some smiled. Some whispered thank you. At her locker, cleaned of graffiti and sporting a new lock, she found a note. Invisible Students Club meeting today at lunch. Room 203. You don't have to come, but we'd love to have you. Emma C. First period was calculus. Savannah slipped into her usual back row seat, hoping for normalcy. The teacher, Mrs. Peterson, gave her a small nod before launching into derivatives. For 45 minutes, Savannah lost herself in mathematics, in problems that had clear solutions. The cafeteria at lunch was the real test. Savannah entered with her tray, scanning for her usual corner table. It was occupied by a group of freshmen, chattering excitedly. Her safe space, claimed by others finding their courage. Savannah. She turned to find Marcus Thompson waving from the athletic tables. "Sit with us." It was an invitation across social lines that would have been unthinkable 2 weeks ago. Savannah hesitated, then squared her shoulders and walked over. The athletes shifted to make room, some looking uncomfortable, others curious. "Heard you're starting a self-defense club," one of the soccer players said. "Maybe. Still figuring things out." "Count me in if you do," she replied. "After seeing that kick, girl, where'd you learn that?" They talked techniques and training. Normal conversation that carefully avoided the elephant in the room. Hunter's empty chair. Chase Morrison sat at the far end, subdued and avoiding eye contact. The power structure hadn't collapsed, but it had shifted, revealing cracks where light could get in. After lunch. Savannah found room 203. It was packed with students she recognized but had never really seen. The quiet ones, the careful ones, the survivors. Emma Chen was at the front with a whiteboard that read, "Invisible Students Club. Mission: be seen, be heard, be supported." "You came," Emma said, smiling. "Wouldn't miss it." They talked for an hour about creating safe spaces, about documenting harassment, about supporting each other. Savannah found herself sharing Kyle's story, her grief journey, how fighting had given her tools beyond physical defense. "Would you really teach self-defense?" a sophomore asked shyly. "If people want to learn, we do," several voices chorused, by the end of the day. Savannah had a list of 30 names interested in self-defense classes. Rivera agreed to help teach at the school gym twice a week. Morrison, eager to rehabilitate the school's image. Fast-tracked approval. The first class was the following Tuesday. Savannah expected maybe half the sign-ups to show. All 30 came, plus 10 more. They lined up in the gym, nervous and determined, as Savannah and Rivera demonstrated basic stances. "First rule," Savannah said, echoing Rivera's early lessons. "Self-defense isn't about fighting. It's about confidence. It's about taking up space in the world like you have a right to be here. Because you do." Weeks passed. The media attention faded as new scandals emerged. Senator Caldwell quietly ended his political career. Hunter never returned to Lincoln High, though Savannah heard he was finishing senior year at a therapeutic boarding school in Colorado. She hoped it was true. The Invisible Students Club grew from 30 to 100 members. They advocated for policy changes, documented incidents, created support networks. Other schools started similar clubs. Hashtag Visible. No More became a movement beyond one kicked bully. 3 months later. Savannah stood in the gym teaching a room full of students how to break free from wrist grabs. Her mother watched from the doorway, pride evident in her tired eyes. Marcus Thompson was there, having become an unlikely ally and friend. Even some teachers attended, wanting to better understand their invisible students. "Remember," Savannah called out as they practiced, "the goal isn't to hurt anyone. It's to create space to escape, to get help, to be safe. Violence is the last resort, not the first." After class, as students filtered out chattering about technique, Rivera approached her. "Kyle would be proud," he said simply. Savannah touched the dog tags at her throat. "I know." She thought about that day in the cafeteria, the moment when 372 days of invisibility had shattered with a single kick. It hadn't been heroic or planned or even particularly smart. It had just been human, a breaking point where silence became impossible. But what came after the community that formed? The voices that emerged. The small revolution of visible humanity in a place that had forgotten to see. That was the real victory. As Savannah locked up the gym, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. She almost deleted it, then noticed it came from a Colorado area code. "Savannah, I know I have no right to contact you, but I wanted you to know I'm getting help. Real help. Not just damage control. What you said about pain making more pain. You were right. I'm sorry for everything. I hope someday I can make it right. Not asking for forgiveness. Just wanted you to know. Hunter." She stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Healing isn't linear. Keep going. S." It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was acknowledgement that even bullies were human, that cycles could be broken, that sometimes the most radical act was simply refusing to perpetuate pain. Savannah drove home through the Columbus streets, Kyle's tags catching the streetlights in rhythm with her heartbeat. She wasn't invisible anymore. More importantly, neither were the 100 students finding their voices in her wake. And sometimes, Savannah thought, as she pulled into her driveway where her mother waited with dinner and questions about her day. Sometimes that was enough to change everything. The girl who knocked out Lincoln High's golden boy had been invisible for exactly 372 days. She'd been visible for 93 days now. And counting.